Greetings and welcome to another edition of Top 10 Worst of Lists. The best Top 10 Worst of Lists is voted by the Top 10 Worst of List Adjudicating Council. I'm your host for today's intrepid endeavor. My name is Maury Wana, and I can't be more proud. Alright, so here's a brief list of some of the manor-born babies. This is a very brief list. A lot of this stuff is tough to come by, especially for somebody who's sort of, got red flags all over the place and has trouble even getting, like, an honest Google search result. But anyway, here's some of the manor-born babies that were let through the gate and let into the mainstream. And notice how many of them, are pretty famous musicians. Kid Rock comes from a rich family. My hair is so bad today. Jesus Christ, it's the humidity. Again, as it always is. Freaking, can I get this thing to... I need some kind of... All right, Kid Rock, Zooey Deschanel, who for some reason thinks she's a musician. I don't know who told her that. I've never heard anybody. I don't think I've ever heard anybody sing as off key as she does. And totally bland, uninspiring. This is my imitation of Zooey Deschanel singing a song. Hang on a second. I'm going to do this the right way. Here we go. So... la 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 la. Zooey Deschanel, ladies and gentlemen, comes from a rich family. Nicole Richie, she's not really a musician, but she comes Lionel Richie's kid. Ariana Grande, multimillionaire family. Taylor Swift, multi-million-dollar family. I don't know who some of these people are. Sarah Hyland, is that a musician or just some jerk off? Chaperone comes from a rich family. Sabrina Carpenter, rich family. Ed Sheeran, rich family. Adam Levine, rich family. Lana Del Rey, is she a musician? I don't know. Well, Miley Cyrus, Blue Ivy Carter. Jason Schwartzman, who played in the band. What was that song? California. For the OC, anybody remember this stuff? Jennifer Lopez comes from a rich family, apparently. John Bon Jovi, he's not really a rich family, but his father was like one of the main engineers or producers at Electric Ladyland, I think it was. From Lady Gaga, rich family. But there are a lot of them that are out there, let me tell you. But then you get Chris Brown, who beat the hell out of Rihanna, and everybody knows it, who just keeps going on, he got more popular, more heavy rotation spins on Clear Channel / iHeartRadio after he was found to have beaten the hell out of Rihanna. What the hell is going on? It's barbarians. It's a bunch of barbarians out there. Let's get it on. I'm Mills Lane. All right, so anyway, so you got that. So top 10 worst rock trivia. Other thing, before we get on, I just want to clear the air. I don't have an axe to grind. I'm not a partisan hack like some of the other people out there. I'm just totally, doing my thing, man. Letting it all hang out. If you're looking for, somebody's going to ramp up your hatred so you can really feel at home with the level of hatred and animosities that's created within the scope of time that you've dedicated to watching a video blog, you've tuned into the wrong video blog. I'm not down. And another thing, one other real quick thing is that, I might not be perfect at all of my assertions. It's just a bunch of opinions. If you hate my opinions, that's fine. I'm not saying that my opinions are any better than anyone else's or any more accurate or whatever. I'm doing the best I can. And if you feel really hateful about the things that I'm trying to spew out here, all I'm trying to do is just to get people motivated to fact check for themselves, to get them peel their greasy, fat asses out of the groove in their couch cushion and get up and do something about the world around them before it's too late. That's all I care about, is making the world a better place for having been here. I want to make a difference in the world. And if possible, for the good. You know, I mean, you know, you know what I'm saying? All right. So anyway, whew, so I've got a lot of opinions and stuff like that I'm going to share. And if you hate it that much, start your own freaking video blog and call it the I Hate the Fat Fuzzball Top 10 Worst of List Guy blog. And get all your friends to, like, heap a bunch of scorn about what I do and who I am on your blog to the point where nobody will watch. I mean, I don't think you it's probably not a lot of good that you can do, but to decrease the number of people who are watching me or the legitimacy of my efforts, because I don't think either one of them is going anywhere that anybody has any respect for, or is fear of me becoming popular. We're rapidly approaching 1.2 views per episode. Woo! Hot stuff, hot soup. It's just, whatever. You tried the best, now try the rest. Top 10 worst odds. I got, I got a heavy case of swamp crotch. It is 90 freaking degrees in here. I've been at this now 6 hours straight-ish, and 2 hours not straight. Hot soup. Swamp crotch. 2 scoops. And the humidity in here is enough to drown the Mojave Desert. I could power at least 4, maybe 5 data centers with all their water needs just from the stuff underneath my abdominal flap. So anyway, so you got it's time for commercials. Oh God. You thought my intro was dull and lifeless. Wait till you hear the fake commercials. From the producers of Alien vs. Predator, now comes the movie sequel without a prequel. It's Alien vs. Predatory Lending. Oh, wouldn't you be happy to see that in its entirety without missing any of the ending credits? Because there could be a little, post-credit appearance by Yoda or somebody. I don't know. I haven't seen it. It's Alien versus Predatory Lending. They're illegal aliens go to a cash check advanced place, and they go, and the aliens from the movie Aliens show up, and they are going there too for cash advances, and the predatory lending. They fight against the predatory lending. It's going to be epic, maybe even beyond epic, maybe epic and a half. And then from the producers of the movie Back to the Future, the most useless white bread milquetoast movies in the history of white bread milquetoast movies. Is there a single person of color in any of the 3 movies that they've done? And why haven't we seen prequels for that load of garbage yet? It's Back to the Present, a movie where people do nothing and go nowhere, pretty much like the original. Back to the Present. With soundtrack by Huey Lewis. And then coming up Friday night, the must-see Friday TV. It's from the producers of Big Bang Theory. Comes Big Gangbang Theory. Horrible. Children of the Porn. Take off on Children of the Corn. Dumb and Demure. That was pretty... From the producers of Dumb and Dumber, now comes Dumb and Demure, where one of them's a dummy and the other one's just sort of shy. And they demur. They'd be like, are you going to take part in these frenetic antics with dumb? And demure is like, oh, I don't know. It's dumb and demure. Do something about it. And I don't know. I can't do any more of these. I'm so hot and tired. I'm hungry hot too. It's been a while since I've stoked the furnace. Let's just get out. I'm going to try to plow through it best I can. This is an essential list. Top 10 worst of list that it carries so much heft, intellectual, spiritual, emotional, philosophical heft. That hardcore heft abounds. Number 10, top 10 worst rock trivia items. The Kinks banned from touring in the United States. Now, I mean, this is actual real trivia. Why were the Kinks banned in like 1965 from touring in the United States? No one knows. Yet the Kinks, who are without a doubt the main progenitors of hard rock, metal, whatever you want to call it, heavy rock, as some people totally out of touch and don't know what they're talking about will term it as. But they're coming out with, I mean, everybody's kind of like, even the Beatles are like doing songs like, that gives you everything's more tender and things we said to, all that kind of peddling that boy band stuff that they do. And, well, I just want to, before I complete my thought here, I want to say that if you listen to some of the stuff that the Beatles were doing from the Star Club Hamburg thing, before they got whitewashed and turned into like a squeaky clean boy band, and you listen to like, what's that song? I Sit Right Down and Cry Over You. And I mean, just listen to Ringo's just a monster. That song and some of the others that they're doing back in those days are the most punk of any band that's ever been. I mean, and not only did they pioneer punk, but they did it better than anybody else. And Ringo is a powerhouse. Ringo is, in those days, is probably the best rock drummer ever. I mean, it's nothing tricky, but it's just lights out with that guy. And it's just one thing, riff, crazy little rolls and stuff that are just, it's so high powered. It's just like on so much speed. What do they call it? Prednisone or something? Prevenant? Preludin? I can't remember. But they had, when they were in Hamburg, they had that special speed that the Nazis used when they were going through the Ardennes Forest at the beginning of World War II. They still had them around. The number on the early Beatles, man, forget about it. And those guys, I mean, they did, when they come around, they do in the first album, they're like doing like Anna and Misery. And I'm like thinking, like, what are they doing this soft melodic cover tunes? It's just so garbagey compared to like some of the hardcore face melters that they were doing live. I mean, where is, what's the other great rocker that they did that was so catchy? Some other guy. I mean, where was that stuff on the first album? Because those guys, Brian Jones and George Martin, screw George Martin. Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields were supposed to be on Sgt. Pepper. And George Martin, who was the AR guy at the time, was like, oh, the record company needs a single. You're going to have to release that stuff. Think about Sgt. Pepper, what it would have been if Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields were on that album. It would be it's like undisputed best album in history. And George Martin ruined that for those guys. But the Kinks come around, right? And they're almost as heavy as the early Beatles. But they're doing it with riff rockers that, that they're writing themselves and stuff like that. So it's a different level type of thing. And they got, banned from touring in the United States. And again, nobody knows why. What the hell are they doing? Why are they blocking the freaking Kinks? And the Crinks, their career was ruined by this. Because all the cash was in the United States. If they would have been touring in the United States, it would have been a totally different band. As it was, they were relegated to staying in England, where, having no other options, they wound up becoming more of an Anglophile type of a band. So they changed the content of their material to suit the fact that they were stranded in England. So they're doing like stuff like great stuff, but Village Green Preservation Society, which is amazing and fun stuff, but it's a 180 from what they were doing at till the end of the day, and you really got me. It's just, think about if that stuff would have been allowed to mature, and the Kinks were rewarded for their groundbreaking music. I mean, heavy metal could have happened with the Kinks as early as 1966. If they would have been able to keep going and doing that stuff and making hits in the U.S. instead of getting stuck in England, where they're doing Arthur, the Rise and Fall of whatever that was, which is a phenomenal album, and Lola and the Money Go Round, great stuff, but it's all like light years different from what they were originally about. And had they been rewarded about what the original about, think about the intensity of having that going on in 66 and where they're churning it out. But they had to stop because it wasn't popular in England as they needed it to be, because they were stuck. That's the only place they could go to make a living. And nobody knows. So, I mean, I think it's probably because, the reaction to the Kinks and the limited touring that they did in Europe before they came over to the United States was so vitriolic and violent-esque. Just the people from the United States are always about, killing them. Think about, one other thing, of what was going on in that era is Capitol Records. Now, here are the Beatles scoring #1 hits in England and stuff like that. With For Me to You, I think Please Please Me, For Me to You, and She Loves You, back to back to back, and Capitol Records refused to distribute their singles. Now think about that. These are great musical singles, groundbreaking and super popular in England, and yet they won't release it. Why? Well, I'm asking why. Because it doesn't make any sense. Unless these guys are all in on it, because people think about, Joplin and Morrison and Hendrix and all those guys dying at the end of the 60s. Well, the same thing happened at the end of the 50s. All the original progenitors of rock and roll were compromised or killed off. Buddy Holly, Elvis gets drafted. The Everly Brothers, join the Marines. And Chuck Berry arrested on the Mann Act. Ray Charles arrested for drugs. Little Richard so scared of probably 1 million death threats that he decides to just give up. In the early 60s, Sam Cooke, who looked like he was going to be the best out of all of them, dies. Richie Valens and Buddy Holly and Big Boppers all get killed. One of the other great underrated progenitors of the original rock and roll, Eddie Cochran, he dies early on in a weird car wreck where Gene Vincent was in the car wreck, and he kind of gets messed up by it as well. And so there was the appearance, and what's his name, Alan Freed, he gets targeted by the government with the payola scandal. And so a lot of these original progenitors of rock and roll were dead or ruined by the end of the 50s. And this is no accident. This is a response by the reactionaries and the fundamentalists in our society and government who are saying, no, we're not going to take black music being sung by white people, being played to white people. This is even in the North, don't fool yourself. Don't kid yourself. The United States as a whole is the most racist country in history. And not just in the South, but all over, especially in those days. The Jim Crow days were very horrific. And that song Strange Brew Strange Brew by Billie Holiday. Strange. Can you imagine? Strange brew, girl, what's inside? Sorry, I'm doing a insulting and demeaning. I don't mean it to be. It meant it to be kind of fun. But here's the thing: Strange Fruit. Thank you very much. Perhaps the most important song in all of history, the most deep and moving song in all of history by Billie Holiday, was written about a lynching that happened in Indiana. And I would call Indiana, although I sometimes refer to it as the Texas of the North, but, Indiana is not what I would call a southern state. And it's regrettable, but that's the way it was. And so a lot of people are getting killed off. And the Beatles albums, Beatles singles not getting distributed, I think is part of all of that, where they were intentionally trying to keep the Beatles from becoming big because they'd done so much work to destroy rock and roll, and they're hearing it all reborn within this band. I mean, you can't miss it from She Loves You. Maybe you miss it a little bit from, From Me to You. But She Loves You in 1963, there's no missing how intense and transformative that song was to any record executive. They're like, oh my God, what, we killed off all those 50s guys only to have this happen? Well, they did the reach of COINTELPRO and the CIA. They never thought to check in England and eliminate all those guys. They just never anticipated it. They were so focused on destroying the original progenitors of rock and roll in the United States that, it snuck in under the wire. And the Beatles were hitting right as the Kennedy assassination took place, like within weeks. And so, but Capitol Records did what they could to not distribute their songs, and they signed with this little affiliated-ish type of label called VJ, I think it was. This little label out of Chicago for what they packaged as introducing the Beatles, which was some of the early stuff off the Please Please Me album without Please Please Me and the other singles that I guess maybe, I don't know exactly, unfortunately, but maybe Capitol still had the first right of refusal. And Capitol wouldn't distribute, so VJ starts to sell some records and build some buzz. This band's doing, crazy stuff like Twist and Shout, and I Saw Her Standing There, and people are really freaking out and digging it, and they're like, oh, well, the cat's out of the bag. Let's just roll with it and do what we can. And they did, and they were like, well, at least they're just sort of like a boy band and stuff and doing a bunch of mellow stuff. And, but that's what our society is really about. It's about putting limitations on the organically driven creativity and using every cheating mechanism that they can come up with to control and manipulate our culture, using their corporate lackeys as a third-party outsourced propaganda ministry. So they can do it on the sly. They don't have to have their own official propaganda ministry like most other overt fascist governments have to do. You got to keep it on the DL. Our number 9 of the top 10 worst rock trivias is The Clash's first album was banned from sale in the United States. This is now, we're talking mid to late 70s or whenever their first album came out. So you think that, all this mishigas from the 50s and stuff, Jim Crow era, would all been done away with, but nay. So The Clash's first album was banned. You had to get it by import if you wanted to get any Clash first album to listen to for yourselves. And that, again, the Clash was provocative in their early days. I mean, they, sort of watered down a little bit. And there's First four albums, though, are have notions of revolutionary thoughts and anti-establishment thoughts for sure. And their first one of those four was way more powerful and expressive in that regard. And there you go. This is another real one. By the way, these aren't fake. I've had to create my humor and compelling entertainment elements of top 10 worst of on my own through other means, because these are all actual real items. Number 8 of the top 10 worst rock trivia. Paul McCartney invented heavy metal with the release of his song Helter Skelter in 1968 while trying to outdo the Who's I Can See for Miles. Now this is kind of true. I mean, it's open to debate who really created heavy metal. Kinks in 64 and 5 with You Really Got Me and, Till the End of the Day and All Day and All the Night. Those songs, I mean, could be a really strong argument to say that they were really the main, and that guitar solo in All Day, You Really Got Me. I mean, a strong argument could be made that the Kinks were the actual progenitors of heavy metal. And the Who, I mean, they were doing some stuff. They had the same producer, both bands, Shel Talmy. So they were, both doing kind of rock and stuff. I Can See for Miles is pretty. I mean, it's acid rock mostly, but they're doing stuff that's leaning towards. And then Hendrix, but it's still acid rock. It's not really metal. I mean, metal has a sort of a darker vibe to it. Helter Skelter's got a dark vibe. There's a lot of atonality and stuff like that. They tune the strings a little weird, so they got like sort of, it just sounds like a drone and just pounding away. And it's, I don't know. I suppose if you get your song titles and lyrics written in Sharon Tate's fetal blood on the side of a wall, and for a thing, I suppose you got to give that's really what metal's all about, right? Bloodletting and death and evil. So, I mean, I suppose they probably would get the nod. I mean, it's really close to when, Black Sabbath and Zeppelin and stuff are hot on the heels of Helter Skelter. So it's, a little from column A, a little from column B type of situation, I think, ultimately. But anyway, the thing about I Can See for Miles trying to do that is true. And, pretty heavyweight song from a guy who most people consider to be milquetoast. People are complaining about Oblada being too lighthearted and campy and saccharine. And the same album he's coming out with, the Helter Skelter. I think it's pretty impressive, actually. At number 7 of the top 10 worst rock trivia, Dumbass Mrs. Robinson, the song by Simons and Garfunkels. Given Song of the Year by the Grammys over Hey Jude at the 1969 awards. Now, I'm sorry. As you might have seen on previous editions of Top 10 Worst of lists, my hatred for Paul Simons is profound. I think he's not just overrated. I mean, he's done some, decent music, okay? And 2 songs that I think are truly great in Sound of Music and Bridge Over Troubled Water. But the reason, part of what makes Bridge Over Troubled Water so great is Arthur Godfrey's, whatever that guy is, that sidekick of his with the great hair. Singing that song is what makes it such a powerful overall experience. It's breathtaking. And the version of them at the Central Park is, eye-wateringly profound. It's just, I can't make it through dry eye anytime I even hear him getting close to that final verse when he lets loose. And he just lets loose. He's just here it is. I got it, man. It's like totally got. It's not even a big huge whoop for Arthur Conan Godfrey's. And but Mrs. Robinson is just word salad, garbage, nothing. If you didn't know the movie, The Graduate, it'd be like, what the hell is the song even about? And even with knowing what the movie is, it's still you don't know what the hell the song's about. It doesn't make any sense, and it's going up against perhaps the most heartfelt song that the Beatles ever did, and groundbreaking because it's 7 freaking minutes long. Nobody had ever done a single of that long. They didn't even think that they could squeeze it onto the 45 single logistically. And it's just like, wow, man. I mean, the Grammys, that's when I lost respect for the Grammys too. Like those guys, I realize the more I think about it, I think, here's a group of people who make their award shaped like a record player because they want to tell people they're not about the music or quality music or anything. They're about sales and about records, selling records. That's why the Grammy Award is shaped like a freaking record player. It's not a musical note. It's not some picture of some opera singer or Billie Holiday singing Strange Fruit. It's a record player, right? They gave out the Song of the Year award to Sam Smith, even though it was 2 weeks after he had been found guilty of plagiarizing the song from I Won't Back Down by Jeff Lynne and Tom Petty. Neither of which, after decades of amazing original creative work, neither one of them got a competitive Grammy between the two of them. And all of a sudden, some guy steals their song and gets a Grammy for Song of the Year. They're clearly, and they knew 2 weeks in advance, so they're clearly rewarding the guy who they knew stole a song by two beloved, yet unrecognized songwriters who've been around forever that never got singled out for an award. It's so sick. So sick. And speaking of sick, Paul Simon, who does more bad songs than good ones, more unlistenable crap, one song after another, just vanilla, forgettable, boring as hell. And then, he's the guy who I've mentioned this before a bunch of times on this series, crossed the picket line with a South African boycott to end apartheid in South Africa, to grab the musicians that helped him make Graceland, and then because his career was in the dumper because of how bad the movie and album One Trick Pony did, and he's like, okay, well, whatever. I don't care about crossing no picket lines. I'm about doing good music, or whatever excuse that he used at the time. And it was a really solid, sort of picket line. The boycott was really strong and observed by everybody, to my recollection, except like Paul Simon. A couple people might have played Sun City here and there and stuff like that, but they got dressed down for that in a big way in the public forum. And so, after Paul Simon is done with these guys for Graceland and his career is reestablished, he kicks them to the curb. Thanks for nothing. Smell you later. And grabs a bunch of musicians from South America and does a different stylistic album by exploiting those guys and stealing their music and putting his name on top of it, Paul Simon. And then again, I apologize if this is repetitive for those of you who might have heard this on various other episodes of this show, but I think this is super important. 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. I mean, think about bringing that up to the modern, context of how people are trying to, rise above their abusive nature of their relationships and, personality flaws and everything like that. When you're talking about a song that's written about how to ghost somebody and how to, get out of your obligations without having to face the person, and have a heart to heart, and at least have some closure. But 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover is like slip out the back, Jack, make a new plan. Don't need to be coy, just hop on the bus, Gus. No need to discuss much. Just drop off the key, Lee, and set yourself free. I mean, think about what it really means in terms of somebody's relationship. You're out there, you're porking somebody, probably living with them because you've got their key, and you just drop off the key and take off? What kind of bulldink is that, Paul Simon? It's like totally abusive. And that's what Paul Simon was. If you look at him in some of those times, and everybody thinks he's all cute and everything like that, but take a look at this guy, and the reason why 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover is so great and everything like that is the drummer from Steve, It's the Good Life Gad. Now, Paul Simon's lyrics are abusive and gaslighting. I'm sorry, but I'm just the way I feel. That guy, and plus, ever since then, those two albums, where it was Graceland and the one after it, it's just garbage. It's 30 years of garbage. Now, I hate Billy Joel, too. I think that guy is just a bully and something creepy and sort of nasty seems to in his eyes. It seems like he's something is abusive in that guy's inner programming. There's wires that are not hooked up correctly. That's just instinct. I don't really know how much. I mean, I know that he was accused of some stuff and whatnot, and but at least Billy Joel had the common decency and good sense to stop releasing albums when he got old and tired of doing this stuff, instead of just trying to cash in forever. Although he does do a lot of tours where he's trying to cash in forever. But he's a great player and stuff like that. Just because I think his music is mostly a bunch of white bread nonsense doesn't mean that, he's as bad as Paul Simon or even in the same league in terms of the music he's created. I mean, all that stuff, the greatest hits of Simon and his Garfunkels, I just think, pardon me, I've got a little bit of, I'm closing in on almost 7 hours straight and 2 hours not straight for tonight's session. 7 in the morning almost. It's like, whatever, Kathy's songs, Yawn, Feeling Groovy, Bridge 57th or whatever, Street, whatever, Yawn. It's a minute and a half long, tops, maybe less. What else they got? I don't know. Parsley, Sage, that's an old, isn't that the one that's Greensleeves? Where they take the music from Greensleeves and they put some lyrics and stuff. Oh, let's list off a whole bunch of word salad stuff again with the song of Greensleeves. That's in the public domain that they could just steal at will. And I mean, it's just forgettable. And Cecilia's got really repulsive percussion on it, and the Boxer got those slamming snare drums. Ugh, totally irritating. Really poorly produced, and it's just forgettable. Speaking of forgettable, let's forget about this guy and move on. Number 6 of the top 10 worst rock trivias. No matter how much those snooty British jerk-offs insist, prog rock was invented by the Doors with the release of Light My Fire and The End on their debut album. Light My Fire and The End are the first 2 prog rock songs in history. I don't care what everybody else says. I really don't. And yeah, but you've got virtuosity, you've got weird topics and themes, and you've got elongated tracks. Those are the things. Those are the main qualifiers that qualify things for being prog rocks. Foie gras. You ever realize how much prog rock sounds like foie gras? No, maybe not. So the end of January 1967, the Doors' first album was released, and prog rock is born. Shut up in your face already, British jerk-offs. Number 5 of the top 10 worst rock trivia. David Byrne did a Broadway musical tribute to fascist murderer Imelda Marcos and tried to be a union buster in the process. He tried to get away with playing pre-taped music as the musical backdrop to his stupid-ass tribute to fascist murderer Imelda Marcos. And they were like, hey, you know what? We've got unions on Broadway for a reason, and you have to use a certain amount of live musicians for every show that you put on here. And he's trying to save money and bust unions. This is David Byrne we're talking about. He's a closet MAGA or something like that. How do you explain either of those things? How do you sort of reconcile that with the fact that this is a guy who's done a bunch of music that people think is questioning conformity in society, and turns out to be freaking... I mean, Alice Cooper's another MAGA guy, and there's a bunch of these guys who are closet MAGA guys. Maggots, sorry. MAGA guys. I mean, a lot of people would say that's not much difference between the two terms. Hey, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not going down that path for today's episode, perhaps for a later episode. Wouldn't shy away from it, but I've got different fish to fry, not bigger. Number 4 of the top 10 worst rock trivia items. Today's list, the song Imagine by John Lennon was banned from radio following 9/11. Now, I'm not sure that I get why this happened. I think primarily the resource for this banning was Clear Channel / iHeartRadio. That, I don't know, they had some kind of axe to grind or something, by somebody singing that, it'd be nice if we had peace on earth and didn't have to fight wars or didn't have to worry about borders. I mean, there's some serious philosophical questions that are being delved into in this particular song that are worthy to examine closely. Who wins from wars? I mean, rarely, if ever, has a head of state or ruling elite billionaire class type been supplanted as part of a war. And the governing nature and practices of society all stem from the billionaire class, the ruling elite, the monarchs, for whatever era it was from. You get a different label, but it's the same, really sort of the basic same types of people who are responsible for persecuting the carnage and the exploitations. But you don't get a whole heck of a lot of... the only people who win in those situations are the rulers. The only people who lose are the peasants, working class, whatever you want to call them, depending on the type of era that we're talking about here. But it's basically, where the only people that suffer are us. And what are these borders and everything like that? They're artificial, especially back in the 70s. Now, because you could analyze it back in the 70s, where people actually thought of borders being a little bit more important than they do now, where, international commerce and things like that has sort of blurred the borders. I don't think anybody's really, other than, Russia and stuff like that, are looking to do anything to redraw borders in a big way. At this juncture, there aren't a lot of imperialism types of things going on. The United States trying to glom onto Greenland, perhaps, and some of the other things. But, basically the impulses of fascist maniacs. And so, but what is Imagine getting banned for? To call to people to rethink about various different types of Imagine there's no religion. I mean, is that what it was? Trying to create this religious hatred and stuff like that and ramp that up so they don't want people imagining there's no religion. I mean, it's not necessarily an actual, something that they're looking to physically manifest. with the end of religion, just like sort of spitballing here, blue skying, trying to figure out, hey, think about a world where all of the things that we've used as excuses to kill each other weren't there anymore. And think about what the world would be like and what we might be able to do to get to that place. And it doesn't necessarily talk about vanquishing of religion, but stop using it as an excuse to kill other people. I mean, every single one of these religions on paper says that, treat others as you want to treat you, although they might not necessarily come out with it as, an explicit, as a form of that, really, but they really kind of lead you to thinking that, killing is bad, in most cases, to my knowledge. And so it's like, why does the killing still happen? And that's worth talking about. It's not worth banning. We need to figure out what the hell is really happening with these malicious, self-aggrandizing sociopaths on the top of the food chain. God damn it. All right, number 3 of the top 10 worst rock trivia. These are all real. These aren't, I'm not doing, this is not one of the fake ones. These are all real trivia items that I dug out. Number 3, Jethro Tull won the Grammy for Best Heavy Metal Artist for an album that they hadn't even released within the year that the awards were for. So not only do you get like a heavy metal award to Jethro Tull, who at best, if you're going to categorize them, are either classic rock or prog rock, depending on the album, really, whether or not it's Aqualung or Passion Play. And the album that they got the award from, which unfortunately I can't remember, wasn't even released within the year of the Grammy Awards were awarding in that show. So it's like doubly stupid. And I mean, what? Again, these lousy Grammy Awards, and these are the only people who are allowed to give out like awards, and the other people who are giving out, any kind of thing that kind of resembles an award in the music industry is the freaking Hall of Fame. Where, I mean, they've got, in the Hall of Fame is all just about business, all about raising the endowment funds and making a bunch of money for the, whoever the board is or, the executives in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or something. Because Love and Spoonful does not deserve to be in anybody's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Okay? Neither does Foreigner, really. I mean, that stuff is so vanilla. And, the suburbanite white power ethos, sort of low end white power sort of exclusionary ideologies and just like dirty white boys and stuff like that. I mean, garbage. Bad Company. I mean, it's awful milquetoast. And then you get Billy Idol. What the hell is that? It's like these guys are just in it to cash in, and it's demeaning to the people who really deserve recognition for being pioneers and self-sacrificing and got made a lot of inroads and only through sacrifices and things like that over years. That should be any Hall of Fame. The very best. Not these sort of half-assed nobodies who had a couple of decent songs here and there that they're just inducting into the Hall of Fame just so that they can stay in front of the news media and keep interest in the Hall of Fame and raising money with their annual galas and their annual inductees where they get tons and tons of free ink and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that any of the people that they're inducting now have any reason to be recognized as such. And it's, another thing is that, they've kept a lot of people who really kind of deserve it off to the side so they can still trickle in a few people that have, some respectability that they can just flow in over the next, decade or so. So out of every class that they induct with 3 or 4 phonies, you can still get 1 or 2 people who actually deserve it. That they'll allow to flow in to give it some legitimacy or some air of legitimacy. But that's all it is. And it's what you cringe. It's embarrassing. This is what our cultural mechanisms do. I mean, the goddamn highest cultural manifestation within our culture every year is the Super Bowl halftime show, where it's a bunch of usually a bunch of lip syncers that half the goddamn country says ought to be, deported or whatever, and half the people, kind of dig, Oh man, it's so demoralizing. But that's the point. That's why we've got to keep our spirits high and not, give in either with single or double kneed kowtow to the powers that be as they try to marginalize the truly inspired and ruin their lives. And again, it comes down to dollar votes. If you're going out and spending your dollars on Transformers movies and Cubs games, don't complain when the AI robots come and grab you because you're part of the problem. If you're going out there and spending those same dollars on pop-up markets and local bands, local plays, local indie movie screenings, and all kinds of that good stuff, then you're doing something that'll make a real difference in this world. Just keep at it, keep on going. You help promote, help sacrifice this, make these venues thrive. 40,000 freaking idiots, morons from a blue state, blue city show up to Wrigley Field every time they open the goddamn doors and give over their tons of disposable income over to the Ricketts family, who are, like inner circle guys for the Trump regime. Why would they do that? Why would they? And they take pictures of them like smiling, aren't they cool? I'm at a Cubs game. And then the next day they're marching at No Kings. You go, aren't they cool? I'm marching for No Kings. What is it going to be? No Kings or Ricketts family? Who are you supporting? It's nuts. All right, so number 2, top 10 worst rock trivia is the name Axl Rose. The name Axl Rose is actually an anagram for oral sex. Woohoo! Woohoo! All right, and finally, number 1 of the top 10 worst rock trivia is the greatest rock bassist of all time was Ray Manzarek's foot. Dig it! I know that's the second time I've had the Doors on the top 10 worst rock trivias. What the hell is going on with the Doors? The best bass player of all time was Ray Manzarek, playing bass with his foot on the organ. Read it and weep, suckers. No, I'm not going to give you Stanley Clarke. I'm not going to give you Albert Schweitzer's, that guy from Larry Carlton. Larry from the guy who invented slap bass. Larry somebody from Sly and the Family Stone. I'm not going to give you those guys. I'm not going to give you Jaco. I'm not going to give you Mingus. I might give you Mingus. He's such a damn great composer and such a wascally wabbit in terms of like his irascible nature. I kind of like a guy with an irascible nature. It gives me just a smidgen of extra respect. I mean, hey, whatever's. No, Ray Manzarek's foot is going like crazy. He's pounding out all the chords, doing all the leads and stuff like that for the most part, and keeping everything rolling and everything, and he's holding down the bass. What the hell? What the frick? That guy's number 1 top bass player of all time is Ray Manzarek's foot. That's all you got time we got for top 10 worst of trivia. It's been one of the escapade. It's been for today's top 10 worst divs. Tuning in tomorrow for another brand new editions of top 10 worst divs, because for the time being, although I have no idea how much longer I can keep it up, there's a new top 10 worst divs every day. Tomorrow's top 10 worst divs. Top 10 worst times to hide your drug stash under your muffin top. Astounding. All right, so tune in again next time. I'm looking forward to it. And until then, don't forget, let's try to get through all this together. And, hey, by the way, one more